Hey, it's Don the Auction Professor. Today is Sunday, so we do have another What Sold on eBay video today. And as always, I've just grabbed some random items. A large chunk of our change right now is coming from our wholesale sales for deals that we've done and retail arbitrage and things along that line. Now, I did call out one in my live video, if you haven't seen it, an item that's showing up right this minute that I've been able to flip every one I got in less than a week. We sold 70 units of this item. I'm not going to go back into it. Watch my live video, my last live video, if you're interested in knowing the item. But again, there's a lot of items that you can actually flip real quick, real easily, without any effort right this minute. Holiday season's in swing. Hot items are out there. So again, pay some attention to it. But we're going to go over the screen and we're going to talk about items that I sold. Okay, so now the first thing here, I've picked a wide range this time. For whatever reason, record sales have been going up across pretty much everywhere. I don't know if it's the big advertising push they've been doing, and that every time I see someone on like a talk show at night or something, they're all bringing a vinyl LP with them to market the vinyl LP. So I'm guessing at this point that, you know, it's pushing the actual vintage market up. In the past and even the last 2 years, the market was going down in vinyl, standard vinyl. Now, this doesn't affect 78. 78s keep going up in price. I've thrown a few in here. I try to show some that I've actually had in hauls, so if you're ever interested, there's always the option to go back and check out the hauls and things like that. So just an FYI on that. I've got a lot of noise coming from outside because it's a real warm day. It's in the 50s today. It's the first day it's been, you know, above freezing for a week or more. So people are cutting the grass and, you know, getting rid of the leaves. So anyway, we'll just work through it. I've got the mic adjusted a little bit differently. So anyway, the first item here was actually shown in a haul. I've got, you know, less than $1, if I'm not mistaken, into this thing. It's just a cardboard tube made by Brown & Bigelow, and if you don't know who Brown & Bigelow are, they made a ton of stuff. I think it's like a department store or something. If not, it was sold all over the place. I found, you name it, picture frames and wallets and prints, even some toys like this marked Brown & Bigelow. There's cards, there's envelopes, there's postcards. Across the gambit. I've even seen some poster stamps from Brown & Bigelow. So whatever you could imagine this company made. This one's actually metal dice. They're New Year's and Merry Christmas dice, and they jingle like Christmas bells, actually. I was quite interested in these. These were pretty unique. Let me see so you can see a better picture of them. Here they are, too. You can see the manufacturer's mark on the bottom, $25.88. Again, less than $1. These are up for a year and like 2 months from my paperwork here. So that's like, you know, less than $1 basically in listing fees added to the dollar. So I've got like $2 into this minus the fees for the actual sale price. I'm still making over $20 on this item. This is why I wouldn't say take things down all the time. Again, everything about this is how we do it based on our store and our store level. So please take in mind what your store level is and what you are paying for fees to list things. When they're a nickel or less, it's cheap. It's not a big ordeal for us. We can list many for a reasonable amount of money, and the difference makes up for anything else. So the bottom line you want to look for is your margin, your profit margin. So if you sell $100 worth of stuff, at the end of the day, you want to come home with, you know, as much of that as you can. So if you're running in like an 80% margin, that's $80 you're taking home after everything is said and done, taxes and everything, to put in your pocket. Of course, you got to set money aside for your taxes and things like that when you do this. But anyway. Next item, postcard, Old Faithful. This is an early one, just by the construction, the markings on it. The card itself is not divided, so that's pre-1907. It's got a 1905 postmark, so that's now 1905, so it's even earlier. And just from the construction and the fact that it says domestic 1 cent, foreign 2 cent, that's usually on earlier ones. The card depicted just is literally about 1900 from my personal experience, how it's silhouetted across with the white, the printing techniques, the limited color, the paleness of it. This is just typical of like the 1899, 98 era through, say, 1904, 05 when this was actually sent. And $20 on this one. This one sold. Let's move on to the next one here. Pork. This is a Detroit label. If you find it, I've never seen a pork with this look on it that wasn't a Detroit one. And there's a ton of different types of music on them. So, this is where a turntable would come in handy to know what the music is. So, just because it's a specific label doesn't mean anything about it. So you just really got to play some of these. This one went for $40. I've had it for a little while, a year and a half or so. It's just a good record. Scarce record, too. I've never seen another copy of this one. Again, that doesn't mean it's super rare. It just means no one's pulled one and threw it up on eBay. Now, there's other sources you can look for records. And if you type in pork on PopPsych or Discogs, you're going to find some more information on that. So anyway, let's go on. This one is $40. Now, this is a cigar card. It's a cigar business in Wisconsin. Boss Cigars, that's probably the key deal, and it's a billiard parlor. Now, people collect business cards and advertisements for pool, specifically billiard games. So you can find collections of stuff like that. People who play pool a lot of the times will have vintage items on the wall. You see a pool table in an ad, you might want to go out there if that's the type of thing you're looking at. Or humidors. Humidors would lead to cigar people, tobacco collectors, and to, just people who collect this type of stuff in general. But anyway, $40 on this one. It's a postcard size too as well, so they show up in similar places. I took 16 on this one. This was 50 cents or $1. I don't pay more than that at any of these. I can't say any specific time I've paid more, other than like a vintage specific issue from a non-bulk purchase. I'll spend 20, 30, 40 bucks, $100, $200, $300, $400, $500 on the right comic book, but it's got to be the right comic book. It's got to be something that I know I can flip for decent money and flip it fairly quickly. I don't lock up high dollar stuff, but I do lock up a ton of stuff, in inventory, because that's the way this works. You got to be able to keep rotating stuff in on a constant basis. And with the market, you can never tell what's going on. It's in winter. So, the purchasing market changes in the winter. So you fluctuate your business. This is another way to stay above the water. Make sure you've fluctuated your business. Stuff is cheaper in the summer. Take advantage of, it's just like buying in bulk, or when you have to buy a specific item for a wholesale deal you're doing, or you're out retail arbitraging, and you try and talk them down because you're buying bulk of something. It's the same aspect. You buy bulk stuff, or the most you can when it's cheaper, and then you sell it in one of the time when everything's more expensive. So buy in the summer, sell in the winter. That's just the way it is, If you never thought about that, look into what stuff sells for. It's out there. Again, I talk about research. That's key, and I'm probably going to touch on this in a separate video as well too, because there's a philosophy 101, I guess you could say, on marketing. And this doesn't just have to do with eBay. This has nothing technically to do with eBay specifically, but it's a general rule of thumb one. You can get inventory cheaper. Like if you watch some of the shows like Shark's Tank or Dragon's Den or any of that kind of stuff, you buy it, you lower the cost of items. And the way you lower the cost you have to buy an item is you buy more of it when it's cheaper. So, if it's cheaper in the summer to get, or it's cheaper at the end of winter when everybody's bought and fourth quarter's now done, like in January, it's sometimes cheaper then as well too. So you can lose if you buy the wrong things at the wrong times, but if you buy the traditional standards in your niche or your niches, hopefully the case would be niches, of course, but that's how this works. But anyway, let's move on here. $16 on this one here. Nice condition, nice comic book. Sheet music, $10.15. It had some watchers, so I threw up a discount on it. I don't really care if it doesn't sell for a ton of money on everything, because bread and butter for most businesses that run typical like I do, or, like this, sell a ton of smaller items and then a ton of, medium to higher price items. But the supreme items, the ones that sell for hundreds, thousands of dollars, are usually few and far between for most people. So, there's a philosophy you take, and bread and butter for most people before FBA was changed, with Amazon and all, was, the cheaper books. You could sell a ton of them, and you can get a ton of them very cheap. So it worked very well, but the fees raised, and then you're not making enough money to make it worth your while and your time, and that's when FBA books started to take a dive. But anyway, sheet music's fine for us. You can get it in bulk. It's cheap. You still research every one until you know the sheet music. You're going to run across the same one all the time. Most people think Disney are worth a ton of money, but they're not. Those are usually lot items unless it's specific certain sheets. And, I'm not going to go into specifics on that right now. I'll maybe do one in depth on sheet music here again. I've touched on it a little bit, but anyway. Rita Hayworth is in this one, so you can't turn down something like that for 50 cents or something, honestly, even if you hang on to it for a little while. So you pay 50 cents, you list it for, 10, 15 months, if that's what it took. I don't believe that's the case on this one. This one's only been a couple months. But, even if you hold on to something for 2 years, your listing fees when you have an anchor store are $1.20 for 2 years. You have $1 into it or less. So basically you've got, say, $3 into this item. It sells for 10. They pay for shipping. So you're making $6 off of this for it just sitting on a shelf. You get 100 items that you make $6 on. You just made $600. And selling 100 items a week is nothing when you have, let's just take this store, 25,000 active items. It's nothing. It's not a unreasonable amount of merchandise to sell at any given point. And of course you sell many others for higher dollars than that, so it doesn't really matter. But let's move on here. More movies. I sold quite a few this week, actually. As we get closer to the holidays, people actually do buy these. The magnetic sound are better than most standard ones you will find, and the majority you will find are not magnetic sound. They're optical sound. I worked at a movie theater, so, I used to help load and do 35 millimeter. And one rare occasion, I got to go with my boss once and help him set up 70 millimeter Dolby of Empire Strikes Back. It was the re-release. And there was some damage in the film, and it went through the projector and stuff, and I actually got clippings out of it in 70 millimeter from Revenge of the Jedi title before they changed it, because the snippet was on that version issued, 82 maybe it was early 83 if I'm getting the dates about right, but I worked at a specific theater, and that was pretty interesting, I thought. Let's move on here. Magnetic sound is the ones you want, so anyway. 2588 on that one. Let's see here. In the Mood. Again, I talk about it on 78. 78, if this was a 78, I would have got 40 to, say, $60 on this. This is an EP, which is better than a 45 standard. An EP has usually 3, 4, 5, 6 songs on it, depending on the length of the song. Micro grooves, which are, I guess they're compact more. You can tell most of the time by looking at the album, or looking at the disc itself, not album, but the disc, on how shiny, how smooth, and how much information is there. It's something that might take you a little while to compare, but you should be able to spot these fairly quickly, after you looked at hundreds of records or hundreds of these, to be able to tell micro groove. So they carry more songs on it, so. Anyway, typical war era songs, American Patrol, Pennsylvania 65000. That's a very well-known song. That will sell it depending. If this was a 78 of Glenn Miller doing Pennsylvania 65000, 30 to, say, $60 as well, depending on the day of the week and the condition of the record. So anyway, $10 on this one. Again, those are 10-cent records. I bought them in bulk. Most people don't mess with big bands, so I'm able to get some big band fairly cheap. But not just any big band. You've got to really be careful on buying bulk and big band, because 90% of it, or maybe even higher, maybe 95% of it's junk. But there's a big quantity out there, so as long as you're doing your homework and researching it, you can pick the better ones and not waste your money buying junk. So anyway. These I got in a sheet too. So again, this is one of those breakup items. Anthropomorphic animals do awesome. This went for $40 for these 7 heads of animals, basically. They're rather neat. I love this. This is the type of artwork I like and do myself. So I've got the pig postcards and the witches and things like that I do for Halloween. But we are expanding. I've done very well this season with artwork. We've sold a lot of direct, and I did some for some business and some things like that. So not as much to share, but money-wise, it does very well. So anyway, I love this kind of stuff. The originals always sell. I break them up if they're in a sheet, and I'll remove the little tabs and all that stuff very carefully with an X-Acto blade. and sell them individually. So anyway, or in groups like this. So you'll get a sheet and there'll be 40 or 50 of them. You sell a sheet, they don't invest as much because they're dupes, but if you can sell a set of the animals, they will sell very well. So anyway. Here's another one, Judy Garland. It's an album, basically. Albums back then, you know, took many records because each disc only held so many songs, 2 songs, typical. But anyway, I got 60, I think, out of this one here. I only had it for a month or so. I listed it, and 2 days later, within 2 days, it was gone. At a good price, and I turned somebody down on a price before this even on it, so I wasn't worried about selling it. This would be considered a scarce or rare disc. I usually do not use either one of those terms in my listings. I'm never going to want to mislead by saying it's that rare. I do not know. I can just assume by how many I've seen and how few I've seen, rather, that it does not show up very often at all, and sometimes you might find a disc or two, and that's about it. I've never seen the folder in this nice condition. I've had the folder itself, but not in this good condition. Okay, next item here is a Santa Claus Christmas ornament. He's a golfer. It's the only reason I got it. I got a bag of these for a couple bucks, so I've got like 30 cents or something into this. It's been up for 6 or 7 months, so 35 cents more into listing it, and then the fees. I don't pay shipping, so the person who bought it paid shipping. So all in all, I made like $8. Again, these aren't all winners. It doesn't matter that it's only $8. Volume counts a huge amount and profit margin. So if you're making a huge profit margin and you sell a ton of it, you know, it equates to a fairly good revenue stream for us. It's the bread and butter of some people. So as I said. So anyway, let's move on here. This one's a Christian, I guess, country-style Bible, gospel music. Blackwood Brothers, well known. They've been around for a long time. They've got LPs out. They started off, it's family. They're from a small church. It's a Chicago record, but I don't believe they were from Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. But this one went for $17.50. Records are, you know, it's a hit or miss. It's not as easy to find some of this stuff, so I don't show as much of it. If you dig, you can find as much as I do and just see it all the time. But if you're not a scrounger and good at, you know, wheeling, dealing, and talking people into finding stuff and things like that, it's kind of hard at some points. But this is Pola's Clover Garden Orchestra. This is an early Edison disc. Some of these are cut in the opposite direction, so they play from the inside out and things like that. Oddball. But this is a blues jazz. Traveling Blues Foxtrot is a jazz connotation. $43.12. This is a travel item. You know, I don't even remember where I got this from. This was found in a box way in the back on a shelf that I even forgot about, so I honestly haven't a clue where this came from. It's been up for a little while, too, but the map on it's what sold it. I think I sold this for, $25 on that one. Let's move on here. This is a bopper. I think this was... this one went right in the $50 range. They paid for shipping, of course. Kentucky Cut-Ups. This is an Oddball Ohio bopper. Sunset's an Ohio label. There's a site that just has information by states and by region, and it'll list all those regions and states' record labels that were available. Maybe I'll share that on another site if people are interested. Leave some comments if you're interested on that, because this will help you ID these. I can pretty much tell you where any label was pressed at, even if they were pressed by major companies, and who pressed them by some of these sites that are out there. Now, they don't offer pricing for the most part, but they list photos of many of the records. It'll give you the brand or the actual label name, and then it'll give you information on what type of music it is. And sometimes it'll show you clips so you can actually listen to some of them, or actually pictures of the labels themselves, of very specific ones. There's a ton in the Ohio Valley area, and that's literally one of the sections in there. And then there's a Detroit one and things like that. So anybody interested, please make some comments down below about that, and I will make a note, and we'll see how many we get to see if we can throw a video together on that. I try to put videos together based on what's more important to the majority of people, and then still throw some in for everybody, even some oddball, smaller topics, just so we can get it out. I've got one coming out on some markings on spoons and things like that this week, and a couple other topics too. So just FYI. Again, nice record here. Santa Claus Christmas card. 1880s original, nice, excellent condition. It had some minor staining on the back from something that was setting underneath it in basically a box in an attic. This is the real deal. This is a awesome image. I actually saved a copy of this for my own personal reference. And I've got others from the same series. There's 3 more. This is a 4-card set. And literally, that's the price I expect to get in the 100 to, say, 150 range a piece. This is the first one. They've been up for, say, 12 days. And the first one sold and right here. So, again, I didn't pay anything, basically, for this. And I've paid for the whole entire amount of stuff I got from the same location already, all in the same, like, 2 days' worth from the time I actually purchased the items. So, anyway, all this stuff goes very well. Another 8mm film. All the earlier ones seems to be going right away instead of like the horror and stuff. Psycho sold already, as you saw, but $20 here. So at this point, we're like 4 times our investment in revenue back from our purchase. So I think it was $1 something we spent on it, and we're almost at the like $5.80 mark right now in return. That's after fees and everything. Now, this one I messed up on. It's actually some other person, I was told, but from my standpoint, it looked like Washington. It still may be. The other person may be wrong. I don't know what the case may be. I've had several people tell me, no, it is Washington by the uniform, and then I had somebody else tell me it's a known litho, which it very well may be. I don't know. I'm going to try and track it down. I know it's gone at this point. It's sold for $50, but I would still be interested in knowing on it just because I do see this kind of stuff. I would have never even, thought it could have been somebody else had that subscriber mention that, so I do appreciate that person. Let's see, your cufflinks. These I got like $14 out of. Again, it doesn't sound like much, but when you pay 50 cents or you buy a bag of cufflinks and tie clips for, say, $2 or $3, or even $5 for a huge tray of them at an auction, and that's typical. You just got to make sure you're buying the right ones, vintage ones. Make sure you know the difference between these earlier 40 type with the 40-50, I should say. This is probably 40s, late 40s, but anyway. Nice ones here. Decent price. Happy with your turn. $10 profit. Another 78, Oakland, Will Oakland, $30 on this one. Again, these are early ones. These are ones most people pass up because they're not rock and roll and jazz and bebop and stuff. So there's tons of these that still sell, and over the long run, we pay $1 a piece. I make a very, very good, monstrous amount of profit on any of these. And you see, I've shown you quite a few. This is just this week, just this account. Chromes and postcards don't usually sell, especially covered bridges, but all the California ones I seem to sell on these chromes. This is just a standard, typical modern-day chrome, probably late 50s at the earliest through to the 60s, even into the 70s possibly on this one. But most of these sell $10 on it. Let's move on. Another one of these, $30 on this one. Person was very happy with one of them the other day. We talked about these. I always start the images off higher for a certain length of time, and then I drop them all down. So you max them out as high as you can. You're not going to sell all of them. You may not sell many at all, but you'll be able to squeeze out a little more profit out of it. On these, you price them all high, and then you can just lower them down later on. You're going to sell some at a high price. Even if it's only 3 or 4, you're still increasing your profits by a couple $100 by doing that when you have a bunch of these type of items. So it's philosophy for us on these anyway, and it does work because some of them are rare. You can't look them all up. There's no comps for most of these items, so you price them high, and that way you get somebody picking out the high dollar ones right off the bat. They're gone. You got your money back, and then you can lower them down later or run some sales. Run a half-price sale if that's what the issue is, or run 30%, or literally what we'll do is we'll literally alter the listing slightly and drop the price down to $34.50 from the original $57.50 listing, when they haven't sold for a while. And we stagger that out by how they trickle in, how the sales come in on these. Here's another 45 here. This one's got Santa's got a Coupe de Ville, and I wasn't paying enough attention to point out which side somebody should have listed on this one. This one sold a little cheaper than I would have normally sold it had I not had the Christmas in there. But I'm still fine. We paid $1 for it, so, Anyway, let's move on here. This one I'm pretty sure I showed in one of the haul videos. I got a couple of these along with some Lego robotic items and things like that. So this paid for the entire lot, and I made like $25 profit off of this one piece here, and I still have the others to sell. So, you know, that's how we work on these items. Put them high, mark them down, or whatever you want to do at some point if they don't sell right away or whatever the case. This is something that I wanted to get out for Christmas, which we got all this stuff up. I'm still cranking stuff out right now. Oddball mix, we're pulling things down, we're moving stuff around. It's been a pretty busy time frame here, so I don't source as much, so I've got time to do this kind of stuff. So hit your essentials when business is, when you don't have to go source. Do something else with that time, productive. You know, check your listings over, research, whatever. Cigar label. This is from the inner. The large ones are the inner, and the smaller ones are from the outside. $24.50. Tobacco item there, of course. This I picked up in a bunch of silver-plated junk. Anything in the bin was 50 cents. So at 50 cents, I guess they just didn't look, just assumed all the stuff they had was just junk. It's not huge profit margin again, but I make $8 again. $8 times 2, 3, 400 items, you know, it adds up. Again, this is probably about the bottom end of what we sell. I don't sell much under $8 on average. $7.99 is usually the lowest item I will list. I do sometimes take, you know, a price or an offer on something for $4 or something. If it's something that's been up for a while, I'll get my money back and I'll still make a couple dollars off of it usually. So I don't complain when that happens. And it moves the older inventory. I don't do that on newer inventory because I just don't sell it like that anymore. But anyway, here's a couple San Mateo items. California, of course. I think I took like $20 I got out of these shipped. So anyway, here's some early records. These are on Rainbow, which was founded by Rotaheaver. I'm not sure if that's how his name's pronounced, but that's the gist of this. He founded this record company. So I picked up a ton of these for like 50 cents or a quarter a piece, and I've been selling them in lots of 6 records. I sold 2 lots to the same person for, I think it was $74 plus shipping for it, combined shipping. So here's one lot, here's another lot, and you move them real easily that way. Those are packed extremely well too, so you have a little extra time in packing them, but for a huge profit margin, I made over $60 on those 2 sales. So postcard here, real picture postcard. I've sold a bunch from the same one. They staggered. I sold some right off the bat, made my money back, made a huge profit, and then somebody's bought a couple, and then he's come back and bought some more. Let's move on here. Now, these I showed in the haul, too. This I got at Goodwill for just pennies, actually. This one did sell for $33.75. Christmas items. These go to a set. It's just a little tiny plastic car from a play set, basically, by Marx. And I'm going to show you some more from that same grouping I had. Another record, Original Indiana 5, Jazz, Foxtrot, of course, Tom Morton singing with the chorus. My Melancholy Baby, it's a known song. Many people have redone it as well, too. Maybe Harry Connick Jr. sings it, I think, too, or Bublé. One of those two sings it also. So this one, I think I took, $30 out of this one here. Let's move on. This one went for just under 40. Al Ferguson, another oddball one. This is a small community label kind of thing too. Now this one I showed too in a haul. $43.12 it sold for. Just needs restringing. And I think I might have been able to sell this one for a little more. I think this one was a walker and I missed that. I went back in and looked at it after somebody shipped it, and my mistake. So either way, I might have got an extra $10 or $15 out of it. So $43.12 is fine for $1. I paid $1 for. Here's another one, Judy Garland, The Wizard of Oz. Now this one here I'll buy in any way, shape, or form because I always sell it in the, say, 65, I think is the lowest I got for this. I've sold a bunch of these, and I do mean a bunch. Sometimes I'll only find the album with no records in it, the cardboard album. Sometimes I'll find 1 record, 2 records, or the whole set without the album, but most of the time without the album. So when I run into stacks of just empty albums, I always buy them. They do show up. They show up at auctions and stuff. Sometimes people pull the records out of the folders, and they'll stick them in cabinets to play easier. And, they'll use like a numbering system. And you'll find just empty albums shoved in boxes in attics. They hated to get rid of them. So I've bought, in many occasions, just empty albums too. So $75 for this. I've got a couple bucks into this at the most. $2 usually I'm able to get folders for like this. Even Wizard of Oz. This one was missing a record. I do believe I slipped in the missing disc on this one. So anyway. This one I bought a bunch. I paid, there was a sale that I went to quite some time ago. I was on my way to a picker and I stopped at this one as well. And I bought a bunch of the same postcards. It was like a closing down of an old drugstore that had been there for decades. And I mean like 50, 60, 70 years. And there was a bunch of these kind of things in there. Boxes in the back and stuff. Multiples. And they were dirt cheap because they were multiples. I sold 2 in the $20 range on this already. So they're like 20 cents investment each on these. Here's 2 damaged tanks from that same lot that I purchased. So again, I made a ton of money. The damaged ones. One's missing wheels. It's chewed off turret and some other issues to it. So anyway, I was happy with the price. They're scarce items, so, you know, over $40 for something like this was happy with. So that's what I have for you today. Well, there you go. There's some more items that we sold. Hopefully that gave you some ideas and some thoughts on it. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified when I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.